So this time we're going to be solving. And if you look at each of these problems, they all have equal signs. So although you're going to be doing similar things from what you did previously, it'll be a little bit different. Okay? So let's start with the first one. If you look at the first one, what makes the first one difficult is the fact that there's an x in the denominator. So what you're going to do is whatever is at the bottom, you're going to give it to all. So if there's an x at the bottom, give it to the first guy, second guy, and third guy. But if you look at these first two, they don't have anything in the denominator, so that's not a problem. Once you give, then you're going to multiply. X times x, x squared. Well, the whole idea was to get rid of the denominator, so that's gone. And I'm left with plus 8 equals 6 times x, 6x. Now, as soon as you see squared, you know you're going to have two answers. Set it equal to 0. And you get x equals 4, x equals 2. Okay? Number 2. It's a solving. Because it's a solving, I need to get rid of the denominators. So I do 3 sets of parentheses. 1, 2, 3. Whatever the first guy is, give it to all. Whatever the second guy is, give it to all. Now, I encourage you to put the 4 under or over, because otherwise you might think it's represented as a different number. And then whatever the third guy is. Well, the third one is a 4, but I already gave the 4, so I'm good to go. Now I go through and I cross things off. X, bye-bye, x, bye-bye. 4, bye-bye, 4, bye-bye, 4, bye-bye, 4, bye-bye. I got rid of everything in the denominator. Now I'll multiply. 6 times 4, 24. And I have 5 times x, 5x. And negative 7 times x, negative 7x. Now do what you do best. Solve for x. Okay. Same thing with number 3. And number 3 is very similar to number 1. So the goal is to get rid of whatever's at the bottom. Do that. X, x, x. Now what I need you to be careful of is these aren't going away because they're both on top. X squared. Multiply. But here there's an x in the denominator. Don't forget to cross it off in the numerator. Equals 6. And then negative 1 times x. Negative 1x. Now I'll set it equal to 0. X equals negative 3. X equals 2. Okay. Let's look at number 4. Goal, get rid of the denominators. Multiply, multiply, multiply. Now, whatever the first guy is, give it to all of them. X minus 7, x minus 7, x minus 7. Second one's a 2. Don't write it next to it or you'll think it's 2x minus 7. Write it above or below. And the last one's an x minus 7, but it was covered in there, so I'm good to go. Cross off. Bottom, top, bottom, top, top, bottom. All the denominators are gone. I'm happy. Distribute, distribute. Distribute the x to the x, which is x squared. The x to the negative 7, which is negative 7x. And then the 5 times the 2 is 10. I have an x squared. Set it equal to 0. Almost done. Now this one's a little bit different, because just because you get an answer doesn't mean it's correct. So I want you to look up here, and I want you to get a yellow highlighter if you have one. And this is the new word, and it's extraneous. And what it means is just because you get an answer doesn't mean it's the right answer. If you look here, if I go back to my original problem, and I was to check it, and I was to plug 7 in for x, 7 minus 7 is 0. You can't have a 0 in the denominator. So that means this extraneous solution is not possible, and negative 4 is the answer. Okay? So number 5, just like the rest. First guy is a 3, give him a 3. Second one's an x, give it an x. Cross off the 3's. Cross off the x. Distribute 10x equals 12, x equals 6/5. Now I will say on your test, there is going to be a question that's going to say, solve this in another way. So if you see 10/3 equals 4 over x, I don't know if you remember elementary school, make an x, multiply what touches, 10x equals 12. Either way works for me. So keep in mind that's what it's going to be like on the test. So if you look at number 6, this is another one that's just like number 5. You can either make an x and multiply what touches, or give whatever's on the bottom. I think your first instinct is to multiply in, what touches, but that just looks uncomfortable. So I would much rather x minus 3, x minus 3. It's already there, so you're good. By 3x equals 2x plus 3, x equals 3. That's what most people would get. However, if you take 3 and you plug it into x, you get a 0 in the denominator. That is extraneous. There isn't any answer in the world that could make this equation true. Number 7. When you look at number 7, you think, make an x, multiply what touches. But 16 times 4, that seems uncomfortable to me. But I can factor. And then I see, okay, give this an x minus 4 and an x plus 4. Give this an x minus 4 and an x plus 4. Now, cross off all this, cross off all that, cross off this one and that one. So all I'm left with on the left side is 16. Distribute, distribute. Subtract 8. Divide by 2. But I always have to check. If I plug in 4, 4 minus 4 is 0. That doesn't work. There isn't any solution that could make this true. Number 8. In number 8, I can't make an x and multiply what touches, so I'll do the parentheses. First guy, x minus 1, x minus 1, x minus 1. Second one, x minus 1, covered. Then the 6. 6. Notice I'm doing it vertically. I don't want to get confused. X minus 1, bye-bye. X minus 1, bye-bye. 6, bye-bye. Now I write what's left. 6 times 1 is 6. And I have x times 6 is 6x. X times x, x squared, minus x. Now set it equal to 0. Always check for extraneous solutions. If I plug in 1 in the denominator, I'll get a 0. That one's out. The answer is -6. Your homework is the next page, but I'll be doing a second video on some of those problems.